Hi, and welcome to a new episode of the Good Ole Podcast. I'm Jacquie Franciulli for Wahoo's 24/7, and we have a women's basketball focused show, or at least the second half of the show. We have Kymora Johnson's mom, Jessica Thomas Johnson, joining us in the show. If you've been following us for a little while, you know I like doing a segment called For the Love of the Game, where we invite either a parent or someone close to either the coaches or the student athletes so that we get to know them more on a personal level. So I'm returning that this week, just ahead of the ACC women's basketball tournament, so we can know more about Kymora Johnson, who's had one heck of a season for the Cavaliers, being named in the first team all ACC team on Tuesday. So again, we're going to have Kymora Johnson's mom coming in the second half of the show. In the first half of the show, we'll talk a little bit about spring football. We only had one practice. The media only got to see 20 minutes of those practices, so not a lot of information from that, but we'll just touch on some of those headlines. But before we get going, why don't you go ahead and like this video on YouTube, like this channel, click on the bell so that you're notified whenever there's a new video here on YouTube, and go ahead and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast and leave us a review so we can continue to grow the show. And also, why don't you go ahead and go to wahoos247.com, where we have complete coverage of Virginia sports. Obviously, it's going to be a busy, hectic couple weeks on Wahoo's 24/7. We have spring football back. We have interviews Wednesdays and Fridays with players and coaches. Meanwhile, we also have practices open on Mondays, not next week because it's spring break at UVA, but the following Monday we'll have more opportunities to see the Cavaliers in action on the field. And of course, we have the women's basketball tournament starting on Wednesday, and then we have the men's basketball tournament starting next week. And we also have the coaching search occurring on men's basketball, and that's going to start to pick up. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that on Wahoo's 24/7 as well. So a lot of things happening there. But let's start with football before we dive in and welcoming Jessica in the second half of the show here to discuss women's basketball. I think the biggest headlines coming out from that first practice and from what Tony Elliott said in his post-practice presser was first the injuries. There's a lot of guys sidelined, which gives the opportunities for the other guys to get reps. So some of the guys that are injured, I'm just going to list some of these guys off. You know, we kind of expected guys like DB Antonio Clary and tight end Sage Ennis, linebacker Trey McDonald, linebacker Cam Robinson, linebacker James Jackson. Some of these guys we knew had postseason surgeries. Offensive lineman Noah Josie, offensive lineman Mikhail Boley. All these guys played through injuries towards the end of last season, even through halfway through the season. So a lot of these guys were going to have off-season surgery and had to have a bigger recovery. So these are names that we expected. Defensive lineman Jason Hammond, another one we expected. There's some other names there like DB Kiki Adams with a shoulder injury, DB Caleb Hardy with an ankle and shoulder, running back Noah Vaughn with a shoulder, punter Daniel Sparks with a shoulder. There is a theme in these injuries in the postseason. Tight end Carson Gay may be back before the end of spring, but that's a question mark. Offensive lineman Drake Metcalf, he is non-contact right now. They don't expect him to go live during spring, but he's coming back from that Achilles injury that occurred last spring for Drake Metcalf. And then offensive lineman Blake Steen, offensive lineman Greg Ellinger, and then Dane Walensky and Houston Curry, the other two offensive linemen that are not expected to participate in spring. So again, we didn't see much from practice. I think the only thing that, if you've read our reports in Wahoo's 24/7, is how big some of these transfers are. It feels like Virginia has gotten bigger in the trenches when you see how big guys like Monroe Mills, Kevin Wingington, Jacob Holmes, Hunter Osborne, when you see how big those guys are, Kazim Moore, you can see that they've gotten a lot more physical in the trenches. But you also can see guys like Dakota Tweedy, who is now up to about 240 pounds. You can see how much he put in work in the weight room and how much that could help as well. So you've seen kind of what the hard work has paid off in the winter workouts for a lot of these players, and what that means for the team. So I think those are the kind of the main storylines. We didn't see the quarterbacks throw. Daniel Kalen, initial impressions, he seems more like a pocket passer. Chandler Morris kind of has the same stature as, I would say, Anthony Calandra, kind of in the shorter range. But again, we didn't get to see them throw, so I'm not going to come sit here and tell you how they look because I don't know. We just saw them running individual drills. So there's not much to really discuss there as far as what I saw. But yeah, it's if I had to say one big thing, this was the biggest team I've noticed since I've come back to cover Virginia, especially in the trenches. So that is the biggest thing that I would say that stands out. The break, we're going to shift gears and we're going to welcome in Kymora Johnson's mom in our For the Love of the Game segment. So stay tuned. And welcome back to the Good Ole Podcast. I'm Jacquie Franciulli for Wahoo's 24/7. And like I teased right before the break, we have a special guest. If you're familiar with the show, I have a segment called For the Love of the Game, where we kind of go into a little more personal details about one of your favorite Virginia student athletes. And today I invite Jessica Thomas Johnson, Kymora Johnson's mom. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us on the show to give us a little glimpse in who Kymora is.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I feel like it's, we've known a lot about Kymora, about her play on the court. I mean, she's had one heck of a season for Virginia women's basketball as they head to the ACC tournament on Wednesday. But it must feel great for you as a parent to see her play for the hometown team. You can go to her games. You're from Charlottesville. How proud of you are of what you've seen her accomplish so far?
Yeah, proud is definitely an understatement. She defines that for me. Like, I really, really am incredibly proud of her. And not really so much for like the tangible accomplishments that she's hitting, but because she's followed her heart and done things the right way and, been through a lot and continued fighting and really had to, adjust. And I mean, she came in and they needed her to play a role immediately, and figuring that, that role out and the changes. And, she still has a leadership role, but this year is different than last year. You have people going, people coming, dynamics change. So just proud of her for navigating it all and balancing it all, because, again, what we see is basketball, but there's so much more than just that.
Remember your time when you were in high school with Kymora and you had the AU schedule, you had your high school schedule, and then now you see her going through what she has to as a college athlete. Is it shocking to you how their schedule is tripled when they go into a D1 program like this?
I cannot even wrap my head around it. Again, the other day, said, "Hey, you want to squeeze in a nail appointment?" And she was like, "Sure." And she was like, "Let's see." And sent this screenshot of her notes where she had her whole day mapped out. And I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. That just made me dizzy. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I now I get it. I remember then hearing, time management, blah, blah. And you hear it, but you don't really comprehend it. And now I'm like, oh, no wonder that was so important. No wonder why. It's incredible. There's, again, just so much you don't see and you don't realize that goes on, and things that they have to do. And all part of the process that probably all, of the athletes have to do, but it's just, it's pretty intense.
And this has been, you can talk about how intense it is to be a college athlete, but to get to this point, It's been intense for Kymora and for a family, because you have to have the family support to go to this. It's been intense for you guys for years, right?
Yeah. And that's a good point. I think that, when I look back, I always tell people, one of the best days of my life was when Kymora got her license, because I thought, my God, just, the amount of time from school to, she played high level soccer too. So she would go to soccer practice. She would have training, with basketball. She would have whatever. I just felt like we were all over the place all the time, and I wouldn't get home until late. Dinner was always crazy. I had to figure that out the day before, or, do it on lunch, or, it was nuts. And so I guess that helped somewhat in terms of her, preparation for being busy. But I guess as a family too, we've learned to, um, sacrifice. I definitely now looking back realize that like my younger children, I was gone a lot with her during travel basketball. And so definitely the younger kids went without their mom some. And I mean, nothing, just sometimes you'd have to go away for a week in the summer, like weekends. And so definitely sacrifices for everyone and learning how to adjust. And it's really, really cool, obviously, now that they get to see their sacrifices paying off too, and they get to cheer for her at her games and, sometimes go to away games and so forth. So.
And when did Mo kind of decide, like, this is my path? Because there's always a moment, right, that she kind of determined that basketball is her love, or that's is her dream of doing. Do you remember a moment that she decided that this is, because this is a high commitment, right?
Yeah. So, I saw it early on, like, just because like her level of like drive and self-motivation and just like self-discipline for specifically for basketball was not anything like I knew it was abnormal. But she says that her moment was getting disqualified from that national tournament, and she was like, you know what, like this is just unacceptable, like and this is my opportunity to do something with this. Like I can continue to work hard. This is where I can run, excuse me, with this in this direction and try to change the game for the better. And she's like, I know I have this talent. I'm working hard. I enjoy it. I love it. And so she says, and I didn't know that actually until recently, but that was her moment. Like going through all of that, she was like, this cannot be for nothing. This cannot be a waste. So, and I mean, again, she already had a good work ethic and was already committed and working hard. But I guess in hindsight, that probably was what sort of like, you know, the game changer.
And when you look back, you guys were going through like the recruiting process, and she was highly sought after. I mean, she had a lot of programs recruiting her. Do you remember the stress and was it overwhelming?
So, it's interesting. Like, I think that she did have a lot of interest and she did sort of like slowly accumulate offers over time. And it just depends on the perspective. Like some people looking at it say, oh, like she was highly sought after. She actually wasn't. Like in middle school and high school, compared to like some other children and other processes, it was sort of just a slow and steady incline. Like, and which, I mean, in hindsight, we wouldn't have changed it for anything in the world. But there were moments where, she was like, what the heck? I'm just as good as this person. Why am I not, getting this or this or this, And, but it's just sort of been her story. Like you just have to work for it and you just have to continue to work hard. You have to continue to get better, and what is meant for you, you will earn. And she did. Over time, she did. And it honestly, the recruiting process was really great until that last summer when that's when I'll say she sort of took off, and like then it felt like our doors were getting beat down, and that got really difficult because she was again also trying to enjoy the last summer that she was going to have playing with this wonderful program, a wonderful coach and wonderful teammates, and embracing that, and needed to commit and wanted to just play and enjoy it. And it got crazy. I remember one night I had to shut down everything because she just literally sat on the sofa and was crying because she was just so overwhelmed with the amount of texts and phone calls. And again, this is still a high school athlete and she's young for her grade and year. I don't know, I don't know how many people know that, but like she's a sophomore finishing her sophomore season. She's still 19. Like she's young. And so she, was like, what, 16 at that point, I think? Yeah, 16, going through all of this. And, just a lot of pressure. And so it got very difficult. And I just, at that point, like, texted everyone, was like, okay, we'll talk to you in 2 days. We need a break. Like it got rough, but, we survived. I do remember just like her and I both thinking, okay, look, like at this point I said to her, I said, look, just put a freaking name in a hat and pick it out at this point, because we cannot keep going on like this. Like we've got to like nip this in the bud.
And I feel like this doesn't even count like your normal high school experiences that you go through as a young woman too. Like you still have that going on behind the scenes.
yeah, like, I mean, prom and, like all of that stuff. And then I mean, friends and, homecoming and, gatherings and class. Like, she went to a private school and it was not a cakewalk. And so, I mean, intentionally we did that so that, she could go somewhere with high academics and do okay. But it wasn't a cakewalk. There was work. And, so yeah, I just, I mean, I just looking back on my own childhood, I'm like, like you're so much better than me because there's no way I would have been in the right headspace to manage 1/4 of that. So,
And it's crazy because when I think back on, obviously Mo had a lot of attention when she committed to Virginia. Obviously, hometown kid choosing to stay home. It was Coach Mox's first class, so a lot of attention there. But I mean, when she was 10, she received a lot of attention because of her journey of being the only girl playing in that Cavaliers teams, and then not being able to play and all that. And that's a lot for a 10-year-old to go through as well.
yeah. And it's amazing to me now, looking back, that what she took from that was something positive and something propelling, something that was going to move her forward. And like, I'm going to make the most of this. And like, so it's pretty phenomenal looking back. I mean, then I think we were just like, okay, trying to get through it. And, I mean, a lot of the emotion and experience then was just like extreme frustration and confusion and just wanting, to make things right. But in hindsight, um, I mean, really, it's pretty incredible what she was able to do with it.
And it's quite remarkable to see the difference in women's sports going from what she had to go through,
Yes.
being the only girl, her team was disqualified because she was a girl playing on a boys team. There was not many girls teams in the area when she was playing as a 10-year-old. So now you have the ever expansion of women's sports. And I know I've talked to Mo about this because women's basketball has grown in the fan base at UVA specifically, but also in the grand scheme of things with, everyone talking about like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. It's remarkable the difference. And Mo has been someone who's talked about that a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a special cause for her. Like, she just, says that like we are entertaining and we are fun and we are fundamental, and like we just needed the investment and we needed the exposure, and it really, like, the growth has been so incredible. Like, I remember when she entered high school and we started, like, we're like, okay, thinking about college and just thinking about like beyond that, like, what was your dream? Like, do you want to play overseas? Do you want to go to the WNBA? Do you not even want to play basketball after high school? I mean, after college, like, what is your... And I remember her thinking, like, we would watch drafts and she would be like, this is just so wrong. Like, there's aren't enough teams and there aren't enough, she was just so frustrated and like, this is so unfair. And like, what do we have? 4 like expanding teams now? Like, it's just like, it's so exciting and like, it's so incredible. I'm so thankful that it's happening and happening, at a pretty rapid pace now, considering we have so much to, kind of catch up for. But yeah, it's definitely a special cause for her, and it's exciting to kind of see it on the inside and outside.
And she's been really, I mean, Alexis Ohanian's big donation to the women's basketball process, obviously a game changer for UVA.
Yes.
But she's used, I mean, Mo has been a vocal supporter. She's, obviously knows that this connection is good for women's basketball. And how much has that kind of helped, when you think of the bigger picture with that support for UVA?
So I think that, I mean, I think from her perspective, she just knew that he was alum, obviously. And like, so she's so grateful. She like really appreciates the things that he stands for. And just, she recognizes now, right, as an adult and like working on a career, that you have to invest and you have to put your money where your mouth is. And, so I think just her appreciation for him, but she saw, I think too, like, an opportunity, because here was like, he had a daughter that was, who knows what she may do. And her perspective was like, she could grow up to be a Wahoo, like, I mean, and so that was her, what she saw potential. Do you know what I mean? Like she was like,
Mhm.
I, want this little girl to know that she can do anything she wants to do. And she, I want her to be a UVA fan. And, so I mean, it's really, really cool. And his wife just, is now like a owner of the Toronto team. That news just broke, I think yesterday or the day before.
Mhm.
Like how freaking cool is that? Like, she sent it to me and was like, like so excited. Me too. I was like, I sent it to the group chat, the family group chat, like it's just so exciting. Like, and again, it just takes people like believing and investing, and to see it happening and unfolding before us is so incredible. Like it just, and it's just, again, Alexis's connection is special because like he was at this university, he walked these grounds, he, took these classes, like, so it's very authentic. And I think that that is special because that is relative to Mo and her experience, just like a grassroots, genuine relation.
And it's when you think back when she committed to Virginia, I mean, she took a leap of faith, right? Because that was
Uh,
Coach
yeah.
Knox's first offseason. Do you remember that
Yeah. I
process? You're
mean,
thinking, oh man, this is a new coach,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I do. And I don't think she like had a ton of, I mean, it was less about like, the coach or the staff. Like she loves them and she believed in them. You know what I mean? Like it was more just about like the program itself, like had, been stagnant and not as successful as it, we all want it to be. Um, and, I think, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of risks. Like she definitely, she had opportunities and could have gone to, top whatever current, Final Four teams or whatever. And I wondered, and still sometimes, like how that must have been for her. But to me, again, like knowing her, and I think again that's what I just admire about her so much, is that she's so good about listening to her heart and following it. And sometimes it's not easy, and sometimes, like it's the harder route. But she's just never been afraid of that. She's like, well, then I'll just work harder. I'll just put my head down and I'll work harder. And like, um I mean, I did not see UVA coming, honestly. I did not think that was going to happen, especially when we started narrowing it down. I appreciated that she kept them in the top, but I thought it was sort of like a sympathy ploy for us. And um, yeah, I just didn't see it coming. And then once it happened, I sort of was oblivious to the cons, right? Like I just was like so elated and couldn't believe it, in shock. I still some days are like, there's no way this is real. But I think I just was sort of naive and was like, oh, this is all like, butterflies and rainbows and unicorns, and did not consider, the amount of pressure that comes with being that hometown child. And yes, the support is so real, but so are the expectations, and so are, the demands, and so are the judgments. And so that is what I've, kind of has been eye-opening for me. And not always from other people, like sometimes just herself, like, um, but here we are.
when you guys spoke to Coach Knox for the first time, what kind of stood out in those conversations to kind of, because obviously you said that being the hometown kid has some stressors that you noticed afterwards,
Mhm.
but was there something that you talked in that with
Mhm.
that coaches, or that maybe Mo talked to you about, just having some sort of confidence that you knew this was going to be a chance to turn it around?
Um, I I don't really, I mean, I think it was like just within her. I really don't know that. I mean, there was nothing that specific that the staff said. It genuinely was both of us. Honestly, when she took the meeting, it like she had been sort of like, she was overwhelmed and wasn't, just sort of wasn't really, I guess, as responsive probably as she should have been. And her trainer actually reached out and was like, hey, the staff really wants to, like trying just another effort. And so Mo was like, yeah, you're right. I need to get, and so we went and met with them and we left there. And I always tried to not talk about things after because I don't ever want to give my opinion, right? I always wanted her to like develop her own. And we sat in the car afterwards and she asked, and she was like, so kind of like, what did you think? And our feelings were so like, they were the exact same. Like we both just got such a like, and it's, I mean, we're 2 years in and it's the same. They are super genuine. They're good people. And, um, they just were exactly as they presented to be. Like they are, such a good staff from top to bottom. I personally have so much fun every time I'm around them. Like I just, like I coach Bond in the parking lot and we will laugh so hard, for 5 minutes. So it's just, I think that was, and you need that, right? Like you have to like these people. You spend a lot of time with them. So, but in terms of like the actual program and turning around, I'm sure just in her, it was just like in her heart or in her mind, she felt like and feels like, I can do this. Like we can do this. Like we can get where we need to be. I think they all feel that way, to be completely honest.
And one thing that comes with the pressure of being a hometown kid is being involved in the community, right? Because that's the one thing that I've noticed that Mel does is she does get involved in a lot of community projects, either just in the Charlottesville area or within the UVA community with Cat Futures and all that stuff. Is that something that she's always had, kind of like I guess a work ethic that she wants to put that's something that's always been her focus?
Yeah, 100%. Like she would be doing that even if and I guess it's technically not, some of it is required, I guess, like they have certain standards that, they want to have the team be involved in, but not all of it is. But that is definitely something that she enjoys the most, like other children, like younger children. She loves her like Tiger Fuel. Because again, it's like, it's relative, it's local, it's, about connections. And it is like, it's so cool to have people, send pictures and are like going to get my Mo combo, walking in like, so it's definitely something she's passionate about. Yes. And it just, again, it's very her, like, it's very, like, that is her favorite thing, right? Like connecting with these people. I mean, every other day I have some sort of, like message. I think it was yesterday or the day before, I had a message from a friend who, is local, like came here in 6th grade. She hooped locally. And she just is like, I know you get so tired of getting my messages, but like, I'm literally just so proud of her. Like I've watched this kid grow up. We saw how hard she worked and they supported her. Like, again, like, this kid was selling brownies and Gatorades at a local, outdoor basketball, and they bought them and they could have brought their own, but they knew she'd be there and they intentionally poured into her. They would come and buy a $1 water and leave her $5, like, and that helped pay for her travel, expenses, and taught her a little bit about business and money. So, yeah, I think it's intentional on her part, but enjoyable.
Hey, it helps her for NIL now, right? Like all the background in her business by
Yeah.
fundraising for her travels.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. One thing that I stuck out from one of my first conversations with Mo when she was at UVA was I went to go interview her. I was doing a story of Mo and O, since there were 2 local players. Choosing to stay home. And before I even interviewed, I had brought my cameras, my mic. She was asking me about the setup, about how to set up, because she's been interested in broadcasting. So I think that's a difference that I don't really get asked that question, and it always stands out when I see Mo is like, she's like, oh, like, yes, you're going to ask me questions, but I want to ask you questions about how does this work. Interesting in broadcasting. Have you seen her passion in that side of it too?
Yes. And so it's funny. I have said since she was 10 years old that she is going to be a coach one day. Like, I just, in my heart of hearts, feel like that's where and she has always said absolutely not. So mark this down right now, because I promise you one day it's going to happen. But she, yes, she was very interested in like, the like athletic training piece, earlier on. And then as she got more like 9th, 10th grade, she got the little broadcasting bug. But it's funny because Mo used to be really shy. Like public speaking was not her strength at all. And she went to Stab in 7th grade. And I remember, and looking back, like when she graduated over the years, just, like through development. And I remember like her 8th grade year, she had to give, I can't remember what it was called, some sort of like little, you tell a story, like it's a personal story, and they choose one boy and one girl out of the grade to share publicly with everyone. And she was chosen, and she was like, oh my goodness, like, I don't know. But she was so passionate because, again, it was her personal story. And she did it. And it was like from then on, you could just see less fear and more confidence. And I remember watching her on the ACC. I don't know what it was, the beginning of the season, like the they brought two athletes down there, and her and Paris.
Yeah.
Yes. And so her and Paris went down there, and I watched it, and I just like I beamed, with pride, smiling the whole time because she looked so happy and comfortable and in her element. And I just felt like at any moment she was going to take over and be like, okay, listen, guys, like, so let's, so I'm excited, and I hope that she gets more opportunities to that end, where she can explore that and, and grow in that endeavor of hers.
I mean, Sam Burnell used to have a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Mo can, in the off season, start that way.
Yeah, maybe.
Never know. But yeah, she's usually a popular interview request for post game press conferences. So she's definitely more comfortable in that area now too. So you notice that.
But it's funny because she was not like that. I remember the beginning of the year, like it's real, like the beginning of last year when, like, she actually, like, I think she tried to avoid it, and I think they tried to help protect. It didn't last very long, but like tried to help kind of like, shelter her. And now it's like, now she's like, okay, come on. Like,
when you reach 1,000 points, you mean you gotta go in the center.
Yeah.
They can't hide her very long.
Yeah.
As a parent, I always give you the spotlight a little bit towards the end of the show when it comes to this segment, is that there's always things that fans don't understand, or something that I feel like parents want to share about either, their child or just about the experience that you guys go through. Is there anything that you wish was more common knowledge?
I think twofold. One, the rigorous schedule that these kids have. And I think that a lot of what the feedback that I get back is like this, oh, well, in this day and age, you're paid to play. So you gotta, okay, whoa. Like, not everyone is paid. Not everyone is paid a lot. Like, I mean, just like they don't, I know that people don't know that, like, there are different rules in terms of compensation for like international players. And, there's just so much behind the scenes, I think, that people don't understand, myself included. So, they're kids, like they're still kids. They're young adults that are navigating life. And I always say, no one, as bad as we, want this win for whatever reason that we want it, nobody wants it more than these kids and these players and the people involved in this program that are literally giving their all every single day in and day out. I mean, staff is missing time with family to be with our kids. Like, our kids, are trying really hard to be their best selves on and off the court. I mean, these are student athletes. Like, they're also working really hard trying to have, an academic standard that, they hold themselves to. And so just, keeping that in mind. And I think that we're really lucky. I mean, I see a lot on social media, and 95+% of, our UVA fans are positive and encouraging and uplifting. And that is exactly what they need. Like, they're making strides and working really hard. And I would just say to try to just continue to, be positive. And yes, you can be frustrated. And yes, you don't want to lose. We don't want to lose. I don't want to lose either. They don't want to lose. But like, how common is an undefeated season? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen. So we've just got to like continue to grow, like forward movement. And I think they're doing that. And so just to kind of keep that in mind and like remind yourself that there is so much, like, again, they're still being children. They, in addition to class, they're figuring out schedules, they're figuring out, eating habits and sleep schedules, and still trying to, they also have time together. Like, the girls hang together all the time. Like, they're friends, they enjoy each other. Um, so I would say that. And, to that end, again, to speak to the support has been absolutely incredible. Like, one thing I did not understand and totally underestimated, and Mo has awakened me to, is the power of the presence. Like, their fans, like the fans showing up to these games means something to these kids. Like, they play harder when we're loud. You know what I mean? Like, they hear it, they feel that energy. Like, and that is really cool to me. Like, that wasn't something that I understood. And now, like, they're excited. Like, there are moments in games where they literally are playing for the crowd. You know what I mean? Like, the crowd is like so invested in them, and they're giving extra effort because of that. So I hope that, people know that and continue to support them. And what was the other thing? I think basically just to, like, think beyond, not beyond the court, because I know it is basketball, but just to be aware that they're athletes. And then I think the second part was, again, the positive contribution that everyone makes with their support and coming, and season tickets. We love season tickets.
And Virginia Women has broken several records with how much more season tickets they were able to sell each year.
Yeah.
Has been there, so it's been a lot of support for the program. And I before we started talking, before we started recording, the one thing that I remember you talking about was she couldn't get 40 minutes to get her nails done, and that's something you touched on a little bit earlier in the show too.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how much schedule. I mean, it takes about 40 minutes to get your nails done. And you can't, I mean, that's how busy you are. You can't have 40 minutes of downtime to go get your nails done.
Again, like, she sent me this schedule. When I asked her for that, she sent me a schedule, and it was like 8:30 a.m. because it's, it's beyond just the mandatory, because, like, for her, like, she goes to the gym to work out herself, like, just not basketball gym, but like, elliptical weights, that kind of thing. And so she went to the gym that morning, and then she said, I'm going to, make a quick breakfast. And she's trying to, develop really healthy, eating habits. And so, I mean, they're already pretty darn good. And so I'm so impressed with the way she's balancing everything. But yeah, just like the meal. And then she's like, and then I have class, and then I have this, and then and then I have lift, and then I have practice, and then I have this other. And then she had, like, classes that night. Like, we, celebrated my mom's birthday yesterday. And we often have to do this. We, like, celebrate late. Like, we couldn't celebrate until 7 because Mo has a class on Monday evenings that, or like last week she had class and Paris was doing the radio show, and Mo wanted her to have support. Like, her mom lives in New York, who's also a good friend of mine. And so Mo texted me and was like, Mom, I'm not going to get a class till 6:30. Paris has her show at 6. Can you go support her? Like, just so, again, like, they're, in so many different directions, and their heart's in the right place, wanting to do all of the things. But, it's a lot. Like,
yeah, I wish I had a third or an eighth of the energy that Mo has, and the self-discipline that Mo has.
Same. I'm working on it. I tell her all the time, and it feels so weird. Like, and I'm like, you're my motivation. Like, last night, the girls, I bake for them every game, and usually I just pick what I bake, and I either bring it to the home games, or if they're away games, I give it to them on their flight or their bus the way before. And so I make a pound cake that they all, like, love, like, staff and players included. And so, of course, they, just got a big road win on Sunday, and that was the request. And so I'm like, okay, like, I'll make it happen because they deserve that, right? Like, that was a big win. Mm-hmm. But she tells me last night that they're leaving for the ACC tournament this morning at 9. So I don't even have, like, time today to bake, So, like, as tired as I was last night, because, I've been traveling and on the road with her since, like, Thursday, I'm, like, baking a cake at 10 o'clock at night because they're leaving this morning. And sure enough, she texted me this morning. She's like, we're leaving in 9 minutes. I'm, like, flying into JPJ to drop off this freaking pound cake.
But they got their pound cake.
They have it. They got their pound cake.
And then you're on your way to North Carolina tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to leave in the morning. They have a pep rally as the girls leave the hotel for the Coliseum. So I want to be down there in time to be able to, shake my pom-poms and send them off.
It's a exciting time for the Virginia women's team with 4 out of 5 wins the last few games here. They're on a good run to enter the postseason.
They are, yeah. And I mean, numbers are down a little bit, but just like I love it. The way that like Coach Mox tells them, like, find a way. Like, we're not going to give in to the excuses. Like, people are going to get hurt, people are going to be sick, people are going to be out, whatever. We're going to find a way. And I admire that. Paris, I feel like, is like hitting her stride. I'm just like, woohoo, because there were so many games earlier this season where I'm like, oh gosh, like, and then Mo injury, Mo flu, whatever. It's just like one thing after another. But what an important life lesson, right? Like, just push on, find a way.
Yeah. Don't even talk about the flu. 2 kids under 7. The germ factories. And you have more kids, so you have your germs are spreading everywhere.
Yes. So. And when anyone has any symptoms, right? Like we're like, Mo can't come over. You can't go over on Mo. Like, no, we've got to like protect the team at all costs. Like, no. Luckily, I've not had any germs, but I mean, like anytime I had any. Yeah, I remember, I think it was once last year, I felt like I might have a cold and I was like, I'm not baking. Like, there's no way that I'm taking that like risk. I'm like, don't worry about it. So
quarantining for like the next 5 days until we figure out what I have.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, I really appreciate you joining the show and giving us a little glimpse on what his life is for Mo, and just to get to know a little bit about Mo too, outside of, what she does on the court. So I appreciate it.
Of course, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks again for Jessica for joining us on the show. It's always nice to learn more about the athletes through a parent's eyes, so we get to know them a little bit more on a personal level. And thanks again for watching us and listening to us on this week's episodes. We'll be right back next week with another Good Ole Podcast.